The pastor says faith leaders are quietly being pulled into a meeting with men identified as being from the U.S. government, and the message was that a release on UFOs and craft of non-human origin is coming. Days later, the FBI director confirmed his agency has already handed its first batch of documents to a White House interagency committee. And David Grusch just mentioned that the next 60 to 90 days are going to escalate fast. Hey, ufologists, I'm Cristina Gomez, and welcome to this episode of UFO News Updates. Let me start where the story actually broke. Pastor Perry Stone went public last week with the claim that a group of pastors were invited to a specific state to hear from men identified as being from the U.S. government and others. Take a listen to this.
What they're about to release, from what we're hearing, there's going to be a release concerning aliens and concerning unidentified flying object spacecraft that some of the people who were in the meeting were telling us as pastors, you need to prepare your people and you need to get ready to answer them for what you're about to hear being released.
According to his account, the briefing referenced crafts that have been recovered, materials not believed to originate on this planet, and what he describes as strange reptilian-looking creatures. He also tied the claims to filmmaker Steven Spielberg, saying Spielberg is preparing a film based on research presented to him on this topic. Stone said the men in the briefing told the pastors to expect two reactions from the public. One group will lose faith entirely. The other group will turn to ministers, asking what is real and what is not. And then a second story broke on the same subject.
Well, I've got to say this was one of the most unusual meetings I've ever been a part of, where the three of us, along with maybe three others, it seems like a half a dozen people were gathered in an Airbnb in the mountains of Tennessee, discussing an investigation that's going on in the United States government against crimes they have committed in the process of retrieving and reverse engineering technology from non-human intelligence. The meeting also went forward to discuss the propaganda plan that was in place leading up to disclosure.
According to that broadcast, the meeting covered an active investigation into crimes committed during the retrieval and reverse engineering of technology of non-human origin. The same group surfaced a date that has been circulating quietly online, July 8th, the anniversary of the 1947 Roswell event.
It is believed that Donald Trump may be planning to do a release on July 8th on the anniversary of Roswell. So that's a lot of the conversation that's being had. However, I would say don't get too excited. I think Trump, like any good politician would do, or bad politician, however you want to look at it, is holding on to this for an opportune moment.
So whether that date actually holds is another question. Sources on the same broadcast cautioned that the administration may use the anniversary symbolically while reserving deeper hold for a different moment. Filmmaker and researcher Mark Christopher Lee echoed a similar timeline recently, but then walked back, saying he believes he was fed misinformation. So, does the July 8th carry any real weight? Now on to the next signal, and this one is on camera with the FBI director. Kash Patel set for a long-form interview with Sean Hannity, and toward the very end, Hannity asked him directly about UAP and the possibility of recovered alien material. He confirmed that President Trump stood up an interagency process led by the Department of War to release government documentation on the very subject.
So what do? We already delivered our first tranche of information to that committee, and they're going to be publicly releasing this information very soon. We are all for it. There's nothing in this subject that we're talking about that we don't want released. Our job at the FBI is to work with the White House and DOW, give them the information, and then they're going to put that out in a methodical process. And you're going to start seeing those releases literally happening in the very near future. We just met on it.
When Hannity pressed him on whether the U.S. has been recovering any kind of alien biological material, Patel chose his words very carefully.
Do you think we've ever recovered alien forms?
I don't have any information on that specific.
Notice the framing here. He didn't deny it. He just said that he didn't have the information on that specifically. which is the kind of carefully worded answer that leaves room for a plausible deniability. As noted in Patel's own description of the agency's record release pattern, the Bureau handed over 41,000 pages of documents to Congress in 14 months, compared to roughly 14,000 documents in the prior decade. Where did those files come from? From the deep depths of the archives, or are they recent filings? There is more, and you're going to want to stick with me for the next part because David Grusch put a very specific window on the table that nobody else has, so don't go anywhere. David Grusch sat down with Chris Farrell on the Judicial Watch, and Grusch is now serving as a special advisor to Congressman Eric Burlison, and this is the most operationally focused conversation he has given in months.
I do have confidence that it's going to escalate in the next 60 to 90 days, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. I certainly know what Congress is doing, and I won't reveal that here, but I do see a lot of pressure to get the substantive empirical holdings that I've talked about, not videos or anything like that, out in the ether. And I'm hoping that's the case, but there's certainly a lawfare strategy, class action, multi-plaintiff lawsuits, RICO, other strategies to kind of pierce the veil on this if it needed to come to that.
So Grusch explained that the interrogatives have already been sent to the CIA and other agencies, that Chairwoman Anna Paulina Luna is pushing the Department of Defense to declassify roughly 46 videos, and that members are preparing to use subpoena power if the agencies stall, which they already have. And one question of how many recovered craft of non-human origin the U.S. holds, Grusch said more than 1 and fewer than 100, and that is the most specific public range that we've ever given. Even though that sounds really vague, that's the best we've gotten so far. He said that the meaning shifted across decades, starting in the Truman and Eisenhower era and moving through the National Security Council, the Atomic Energy Commission, the CIA's old Office of Policy Strategy, and eventually the major defense contractors. Around 2004, after the global war on terror began, much of the program was transferred to private contractors, and that move pulled it outside of Freedom of Information Act reach and outside of routine congressional oversight. And this connects directly to a warning from the Joseph Z broadcast.
Yeah. The meeting we were in, Tony, they said this. They said the government has been told a lie. The government believes that lie. And that is what they are going to reveal to us. They're going to reveal a lie to us.
Grusch made a similar point in his own way, and he said any document released will be heavily redacted, and the public should not assume the most important holdings would be the first batch. The strategy, as he described it, is to guide the public towards disclosure without ever defining what is being disclosed. He also raised the possibility that a foreign government could also move first.
In Brazil, the former defense secretary in Brazil is running for president right now, and he said if he gets elected president of Brazil, he will release what the Brazilian government knows about this topic, and that, he said that public record. So it's funny you say that. There's actually a possibility that even Brazil might release stuff just based on the statements of a current candidate for president down there.
Yeah.
That candidate has stated publicly that if elected, he will release what the Brazilian government knows on the UAP topic. But how many times have we heard that in the USA? Jimmy Carter, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and Trump have all said the same thing too, and nothing really happened. Brazil has its own documented history here, including the Operação Plato in 1977 and the Varginha, Brazil incident in 1996. The Brazilian military maintained an active UAP investigation file long before AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, and if a head of state in South America moves before Washington does, the framing of disclosure could possibly change overnight. The real question is what every other country is waiting for. Why is the world looking to the US to move first on this? Any government could release that at any time, but none of them have. Grusch suggested President Trump issue a document preservation executive order to prevent what has happened before. He referenced a burn bag and a shred event at a specific agency in the mid-1990s, when the Clinton administration was rumored to be considering disclosure. Records were destroyed. The same pattern erased significant portions of different psychological government-funded operations. And Grusch also noted that after his Senate testimony in late 2022, physical holdings were reportedly relocated. If a release is coming, the material needs to be secure before any agency has the chance to move it again. Now, here is the part that we really need to ask ourselves. If this is real, why are only pastors being briefed? Not rabbis, not imams, not leaders from any other faith tradition. The U.S. is not a single faith country, and a release of this scale would affect every belief system on this entire planet. So why narrow it to one group in one audience? It also lines up a little too cleanly with the demonic framing Vice President J.D. Vance has been pushing publicly recently, where UAP and non-human intelligence get described in spiritual warfare terms. David Grusch addressed that framing in his Judicial Watch interview, and he said it is theologically premature to label any of this as demonic when we do not yet know what we're actually dealing with. So are pastors being briefed because the government genuinely wants the public prepared? Or is the briefing itself part of the same narrative the demonic angle has been building towards for years? Because if it's the second one, this is not a warning about disinformation. This is the disinformation. What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'm Cristina Gomez, and that's it for today. I will see you again tomorrow at 10 a.m. PST for another UFO news update. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. If you enjoyed today's show, hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit the notification bell as I do daily UFO news and updates. Fresh UAP stories, government disclosures, and breaking developments land here every single day.